Hello, and welcome to Socially Holistic Podcast. Socially Holistic helps coaches and holistic entrepreneurs and women in heart-centered businesses make sense of social media so they can build their own online network and get more clients. As a heart-centered business owner, you do amazing work. Holly's mission in life is to help you help more people. Help us help more women in business with a 5-star review of this podcast. Please leave one today over at iTunes. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more heart-centered businesses will be successful. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Socially Holistic Podcast, episode 22. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm here with today's very special guest, Jayne Morris. Jayne helps people transform their lives from burnout to brilliance. Welcome, Jayne.
Hi there, Holly. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? I think you've got a very, very fascinating background and it's very relevant to what you're doing.
Sure. Well, I actually started off in marketing. I did a degree in economics and languages and was working internationally. I worked for Adidas at the German headquarters over there and Thomas Cook in Spain. And then I spent 3 years living and working in Japan and came back to the UK and worked in marketing for children's television brands. So marketing was really my kind of background before moving into what I now do. And I was somebody that always was on the go, always pushing myself, aiming high. I didn't really know how to rest or relax, and as a result I started to burn out. And that's really been the reason that it's become my sort of specialism. It was part of my own journey. They say we teach what we most need to learn, and I definitely needed to learn how not to burn out. So it was actually while I was working at the BBC, I saw a coaching course which was promoting itself as something that would help you if you always felt that you were tired or feeling unfulfilled in your work. And those words really jumped out at me when I saw the marketing around it and opened my eyes to the fact that I was running full steam all the time but not really making the progress that I wanted to make. And the course really helped me to really discover, because I was almost just so much on autopilot all the time that I wasn't even aware that the goals and things I'd set in my career weren't truly sort of heartfelt desires that I had. They were more like things I felt that I should do or kind of logical, next steps. And the coaching course really gave me tools and techniques that helped me to understand myself better. And it was almost like I just thought, wow, I wish I knew this stuff when I was young, when I was in school, and wouldn't it be great if they taught these things in school? So I left the BBC and decided to start training to be a coach. I took a master's level degree course that was accredited by the University of Chester, and that was the beginning of a complete change in career direction. I then went on to complete further master level degree course in integrative arts psychotherapy and various holistic courses with energy healing, hypnotherapy, regression and progression, and kind of combined all of that to create my own method of coaching, which has evolved over the years as my business has grown and become more niched.
And your business has recently gone through a whole rebrand because you used to market yourself as the power coach.
That's right, yes. Well, when I first started my coach training, it was for me about discovering my own purpose and my true passions and reconnecting with a sense of inner power. I had studied martial arts for a good part of my life. I started when I was very young. My dad trained me at home. He used to practice judo and jiu-jitsu and karate. And then I sort of officially started training when I was about 10 years old. And I'd learned through martial arts how to connect with a sense of inner power, and also learned the power of tools like meditation and energy management. But I'd never taken those things really out of the dojo, the sort of training hall. And it wasn't until I burnt out that I used those tools and techniques and really drew on them along with the life coaching and arts modalities to kind of piece things back together and bring myself back to life. So I started off really with those 3 areas as being the areas that I was helping people with. So rediscovering their power, their passions and their purpose. And I predominantly worked with women at the beginning, but then I kept attracting more and more women and also men who were approaching me with burnout. And I guess as I was almost able to prove to myself that there was another way of living my life that didn't involve being constantly tired and overwhelmed, I felt that I could teach other people how to achieve that, and I could help them to uncover the root cause of their burnout, not just from my own experience but from the other things that I'd learned along the way that would help people to get to the bottom of their problems. So I felt I could authentically say that I could really help people with burnout, because it'd been 4 or 5 years on and I'd never gone back to burnout myself. So I was obviously doing something right. So so I rebranded in January of 20, what year are we now? 2013. Yeah, that's right. And my business is now really very much niched in that area. I've been writing a book which will be published next year on the topic of burnout specifically. I've been writing a lot for several magazines and papers this year on the topic of burnout, and been involved with panelist discussions for the Huffington Post and the Guardian. I've really sort of honed in on that area, and I write now for the NHS online as well, and sort of their lifestyle sector, and bring burnout more and more into my articles that I produce for them. So it's really become my area of expertise, as it were.
And this is clearly a topic that so many people need to learn about, because I think so many people don't realize that they've put themselves on a path that's heading straight to burnout.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's part of the problem, actually. People, when they're so far in it, they don't almost realise that that's where they're at. And it's not until things start to crumble, unfortunately, and crises start to arise that many people actually stop and take the time to go within and find out actually what's going on in my life. Everything's falling apart, and what's the reason for that, whether it's their health or their relationships. It's quite often at a stage where nothing seems to be working that people find the answers to all of it.
And do you find that when your clients come to you, are they aware that they're on that path to burnout, or are they just completely confused and feel like nothing is working?
Well, there's a combination that there are some clients who have burnt out before, and so they're actually aware that they've repeated old patterns and they're going back down the same path, and they kind of know where they're headed if they don't do something to turn it around. And then there are other people who come to me who, like you say, they're overwhelmed, they feel stuck, they're constantly tired, and they don't really know why, and they don't know what to do either to make a change. I help people sort of with both of those backgrounds. The trickiest people to help are usually the ones who don't know what's going on, because by the very nature they don't know what's going on, they're not as likely to look for me. But obviously with, having written articles and appeared in different places, sometimes it's about somebody else seeing the work that I do and then recommending it on to their son, their daughter, their partner. So quite often it will be a case of I'll get a phone call, and the other day somebody said that their dad had posted through their letterbox a magazine article that I was in, and they were taking the hint and deciding that, okay, maybe something's out of whack here and I need to do something about it. So yeah,
that's interesting. It's really good to hear that a lot of people are helping other family and friends through your articles and helping them kind of get aware of the idea that they might be doing something that's not healthy for them.
Yes.
So what do you love most about your business and how you help people?
I think what I love most about my business is how much it's given to me myself, and how real it can be to shift your life from this feeling of really surviving and struggling to feeling alive and really thriving. It's probably been, to be quite honest with you, the last couple of years really that I've actually started to 100% truly believe that it's possible to live our lives in a sustainable way that doesn't require constant effort and constantly doing something in order to experience results. I wanted to believe that at the beginning, and I knew that I had to really change the way I did things in order to allow my body to recover from burning out. So I knew I needed to rest. I knew I needed to readdress the balance and not be depleting my energy resources without sort of topping up the tank from time to time whenever I first sort of started recovering. And I could kind of get it that worked from a health perspective, but what I was less convinced by was that if I wasn't putting in effort with regards to moving forward with my business, so before I started my business it was always about my career progression and making the most of sort of every single opportunity in order to have another sort of string to my bow or something on my CV that was going to stand out and make me, attractive to the next employer or whatever. So I always felt this sort of pressure that if I wasn't adding something extra to my sort of portfolio or CV, then, how was I going to get this return that I wanted of the better job and the greater achievements and those sorts of things. And yet, with my business, well, as anybody listening to this call will know, if they're running their own business, you have so many more responsibilities almost, because when you start off on your own, you are responsible for every area of your business, the accounts, the marketing, it all sort of falls on you. And one of the biggest things I had to really acknowledge when I started was that if I didn't outsource things and hand stuff over to other people, I would just be forever kind of in this firefighting mode trying to do it all. And I was really kind of aware that things like building your own website, these things are actually fairly straightforward to do. Anybody who's been sort of brought up in our generation with computers readily part of our lives, or at least they were from sort of latter years of secondary school into university. For me, I didn't have them in primary school or anything, but it's we're kind of aware of computer technology, and it's simple to learn sort of most of the stuff that's out there to help us to do things to a decent enough level that they function. But when that's not your specialism, that it just takes up so much more time, and you do it with less skill and professionality than somebody who that is their core business. Just as accounts is something that I can do myself. I can mentally cope with balancing books and stuff, but I hate doing it, and it would take me a lot longer than somebody who is an accountant and that's their thing, is figures. So I really learned quite soon into things that I had to outsource the bits that someone else could do as effectively, if not more so, than I could do myself, and that would free me up to put the effort and the energy into the areas of the business that only I could put the energy and effort into, and that those were the areas then, when I brought my full energy and attention to them, that would have the biggest rewards and make the biggest impact and difference. So I instantly got rid of bookkeeping and web building and any areas of sort of marketing and things that I really would have been starting off not knowing much about and would have needed to acquire new skills in order to get good at them. And that, I honestly believe that was what kind of helped fast track my first few years and enable me to get myself known in for example, with journalists and things, and to actually get the marketing working. I took on a marketing professional at the beginning who taught me the ropes with how to write press releases, how to build the connections with journalists, and I do think those things are actually very valuable for a certain level with your business, for you to do yourself, because only you can really talk about what you do with heart and soul and passion. No one else can really do that as effectively as you can, really relay your message. There obviously comes a stage where someone else needs to take over the PR, and because it becomes too big a machine for you to manage, and I'm exploring that for next year with my book, because it will be too much for me to do on my own. But those, for people who are sort of just building their business and getting word out about it, there's nothing more powerful, I don't think, than you picking up the phone and speaking to people yourself and really authentically speaking from your heart about what you do and why you're passionate about it. And so that was something I learnt the ropes, how to do it, and then put a lot of energy into that myself. And then obviously only I can really work with my clients in the way that I do. But I'm also looking at how I can teach other people to use the tools and techniques that I use. So I've run a few sort of training programs along the way, teaching other people how to work with their clients effectively using the tools and techniques that I've created or kind of structured based on things that I've learned from others, sort of packaged them together in a special way. And I'm looking more at how I can do that so that I can take the work that I do into bigger into lots of organisations, especially schools and other places where burnout is a big problem. But only one person can do so much. So.
And it seems that you've got a very holistic approach to how you work with clients, because you've got such a variety of skills in your background and experience.
Yes, I guess that's true. And I think a lot of the skills really helping people to go within themselves and find answers and get clear on their purpose and come up with the inspiration that they need, so that when they're moving forward, they're being fueled by something that's bigger than themselves. It almost comes through them, the energy and the excitement and the enthusiasm for what they're wanting to do next, rather than the way we've kind of been conditioned since we were children, the sort of tick box formula for life, that it's all about competing and comparing and moving along through life based on sort of, like I said earlier in the call, like logical next steps. And I think it's about helping people to return to who they really are. And if you imagine yourself, you've been born in this world for a reason, and to make a difference in your own way, sort of uncovering what that might be. Because when people have got real passion for what they do, burnout's less of a problem. I do have people who are extremely passionate about what they do, and they're doing what they would call their life purpose, and they still burn out just because they're trying to help so many people and they forget to help themselves along the way. But more people seem to burn out when they're doing something that they feel restricted by or unenthusiastic about or disconnected from, than do when they're actually following something that they love and they know that deep down that they're supposed to be doing. So, yeah.
So what would you say are your top tips for helping people go from burnout to brilliance? Because I know this is something, as we've said earlier, a lot of women in business suffer from.
Well, I think as I started with one of your previous questions, and then I forgot I was going to mention this. So the reason the last 2 years have been so pivotal for me have been because I had a baby a couple of years. Well, she's going to be 2 in March of 2014, so she's like 19 months old now. And that really, really challenged the belief I had in doing less and being more and achieving more and contributing more. And so my sort of top tips are about really going within and listening to yourself for guidance. And that's what I really had to do when I was having my first child, because instantly the amount of time that I had available to me and energy to devote to my business was, I would say, halved. And so I had to find a way to really focus my energy and attention on the things that were the most important with my business. And that has just made the most amazing difference in my business, because I've done so much more with my work in the last year, really, than I had done in sort of 4 or 5 years prior to that. Mm-hmm. And I genuinely believe it's because I cut down my working hours even more so. And I'm pregnant again now, so mm-hmm. I'm expecting another baby in January. And this pregnancy has been quite different from the first one, in the sense that I'm obviously with a little toddler, moving around a lot more physically than I was the first time around, just by the very nature of sort of picking stuff up off the floor all the time. And so I've had to reduce my working hours even more so to make sure that I'm prioritising my health and the health of my, little baby that's on its way. And yet that hasn't negatively impacted my business either. And the sort of 2 occasions of these 2 children coming into my life, really shook me as far as what's really possible when you do less and you really listen and you trust that when you look after yourself and you really nourish yourself and give yourself the rest and the nutrition and the exercise and all the things that your system needs, your energy shifts, and it means it's expanded in such a way that, and replenished, that when you come to do the work you need to do, you're able to bring so much more of yourself into that work, and the ideas you come up with are then better. The connections you make with people are more genuine and more energized, because people feel that from you. rather than sort of showing up shattered and a sort of shadow of who you really are. It's that you're only able to do so much when you're exhausted, and only able to do so much for so long. And I went from working probably 80 to 100-hour work weeks down to probably about 40 hours when I first started my business, and then 20 hours, after Bella was born, and now I do even less. And I obviously next year that will be reduced significantly again, especially for the first part of the year, and then I plan to sort of increase things again as time goes on. But I remember hearing this concept of the 4-hour work week, the author Tim Ferriss,
yes.
And thinking that, sounds great, but that's just ridiculous. And I'm now starting to actually believe that could be possible for people. I genuinely actually would want to work more than 4 hours, and that's because I love what I do, and it wouldn't be almost enough for me. Like, I feel just to do 4 hours, because I would want to do more than that, just like it's fulfilling to do more than that. I probably do about 4 hours a day at the moment on an average, so no 2 weeks are the same for me. So I'll have sort of full working days with clients, and maybe several of them, and then have a few days out. On 1 week, another week it's 4 hours a day. It just varies, but that's been really interesting for me. So my top tips really are, for number one, to be able to really listen to your body and use that as your guide, and use your body to help you to go within for clarity, for guidance, for the reassurance that you need about what is for your highest good to happen next. So my body was giving me signs and symptoms all the time that I was tired, that I was stressed, that I was needing to take a rest, and I was overriding them. And the typical sort of signs and symptoms that come whenever you are burning out, physical in the sense that you get, coughs and colds that won't go away, not being able to get moving and just constantly feeling tired. There's emotional signs and cognitive and behavioural indicators. And these are all things that when people stop and actually notice them, rather than say, popping a pill because you've got a headache, or comfort eating because you're just wanting to feel a bit better and craving sugar, or drinking caffeine to try and get yourself going in the morning, or alcohol to sleep at night, all of those sorts of things, rather than sort of reaching for the headache tablets and the biscuits and the Red Bull and the red wine, really sort of taking the time to pause and think, okay, what's beneath this? What's the message that my body wants to communicate with this tiredness? So that's sort of the first tip. And then the second tip would be to then trust what comes next. So we all have this sort of internal navigation system that helps us to pay attention to stress and really prioritise self-care. But it's a bit like the sat-nav that we would have in our car. We have a choice whether we want to listen to it or not. And most people, like I used to, just would, switch the sound off and override. And I think sort of pressing pause on busyness is really key to trusting the guidance that you get. And I sort of say to people, if you can just take a moment when you notice you're at your most stressed and you're at your most pushed for time, that's the moment when you need to slow down and stop the most, even when you feel you can't. So I have people telling me all the time, well, I can't even go to the toilet during the day because I'm so busy. And they'll be eating all 3 meals at their desk. Really will come out with all the excuses under the sun as to why they cannot get up and move from their desk and go to the loo, go outside and have something to eat. There's always a million things that are more important. So they believe, and I was the same. And yet it's bullshit. The most important thing is you, because if you don't start looking after yourself, the rest of it just comes crashing down. So I help people just initially just to give themselves permission to breathe, because so many people go through day-to-day life and they're literally doing this shallow sort of breathing, like, what's next? I've got to do this, then I've got to do that. How am I going to get this done before this? And they, just, you can feel the stress just rising, even just reenacting that, so I tell them to take 3 full deep breaths at the very moment when they feel they most just, can't stop, really challenge themselves to find that time and to find some sense of calm amidst all the chaos by connecting with their breath. And what that instantly does is calms down the stress response and helps the body to start to send oxygen to the cells that are being, deprived of it. And I ask them to try and breathe in peace, like the sensation or intention of breathing in peace, and breathe out tension, and consciously try and let that tension go from their bodies. And then the whole part about the sat nav is asking for what they most need to do in that moment. So asking themselves a question, what one thing could I change for my highest good, and then listening for the response. And it will come, it always comes. It's just a case of noticing and being aware and staying in your body long enough to notice whether you get a sensation or a thought or some inspiration, or maybe a little image that flashes into your mind's eye, or almost like a whisper of inner guidance. And then the key is to acknowledge that and trust it and act on it. And sometimes the guidance might just be to do nothing at all, so just to sit for another 5 minutes and breathe. Sometimes it will be about lessening your load and letting something go, saying no to somebody and a lot of people really struggle with saying no. They just feel that they're always saying yes whenever someone's asking something of them, and that can be a real challenge for people. But the breathing will help to find the strength to say no when you need to say no. So that's sort of tip 2. And then tip 3 is to really look at the different areas of your life where you're holding overwhelm and struggle. Struggle basically always shows up in our lives, sort of struggle on the inside, so that the sort of root cause of burnout will be internally in our thinking, but will show up in all different areas of our life. So the way we choose to fill our time, the quality of our relationships, what we choose to put in and on our body, what's going on in our physical environments, all this sort of stuff that people think of as clutter, like their wardrobes bursting at the seams and things like that. And then your energy. And I suggest to people to let go of anything that no longer supports them, anything that they don't really love. And if they're hanging on to things, then to really just start to let go and give themselves permission to let go. And because our sort of internal and external experiences are really intrinsically linked, it doesn't need to be any more complicated or difficult to begin clutter clearing than just starting with a drawer, like your sock drawer, or, just start even in the kitchen, your cutlery drawer, just clear some area, small area out. And just by doing that small area, that then will act as a catalyst for you to do bigger areas. And it can be really transformational, just clearing out things and doing a complete sort of detox really of your life, and that helps to just free up more energy, and it helps you to gain more clarity on what's been burning you out. So those are my top tips.
Thank you very much. It's amazing how decluttering physical things, as you say, the sock drawer, can just make such huge shifts in the bigger areas of our lives.
I read something, it was just today, I think, on Twitter, and I've retweeted it. So there are 2 things I can mention here, I guess, that would be relevant. One is, if you want to check out this post, it was by a lady called Pamela Johnson. Mm-hmm. She wrote an article for Huffington Post, and she written down her quotes that I could remember it, because otherwise I'm not very good at remembering things off the top of my head. So she was talking about the benefits of clearing out things from your wardrobe that you don't love, basically. And she says, don't settle. She says, everyone has a few favourite outfits. The suit that makes you feel like you belong in the C-suite. The pants that make you look particularly skinny. She's American, so obviously she means trousers. I've not seen any skinny pants yet. They're super elastic in them, wouldn't they? When you're wearing these outfits, the answer is always yes. Yes, I want to be president of the PTA. Yes, I want to stop by the cocktail party after work. Then there are the I'm not going to see anyone today, so I guess I'll wear these shoes that you wear and add 10 years to your look. Every time you put on an outfit you don't like, you're telling yourself all the things you won't do today, all the possibilities that won't happen, or the chances you won't take, and all that before you even go downstairs for coffee. I just thought it was quite it was really true what she'd said about the impact that just what we wear makes, you know. And if you go through your wardrobe and clear out all the stuff that you just know you feel like shit when you wear it, get rid of it, and that instantly, you know, reduces what you have in your wardrobe, so you can find the things you actually like and do feel good in. And I'm going to be on so my Twitter thing is just Burnout Expert. I'm very easy to find. But I'm going to be on a television programme and talking about clutter. It's Sky 203's Chrissy B show.
Oh, okay.
And depending on, you know, who's listening to this and when, the recording of that show will be on my website. So even if you miss this show live, it's if you go to JayneMorris.com and then /television, you can get the recording there. But I will be talking about the impact that clearing your clutter makes in your life, and that challenging you to wear the things that you would normally say for what my mum used to call Sunday best. You know, don't just let things sit in your drawers for years and years and you've maybe never worn them. Just they're beautiful, but you don't want to sort of ruin them by putting them on. Put them on and enjoy them, because by putting them on you do shift your energy. And although in that quote that I read, you know, the lady's talking about how you'll say yes to the PTA yeses. One of the things with burnout is the problem some people have with saying yes to too much, as I said, but it's just about the fact that you feel good enough to hold yourself and conduct yourself in a different way. You feel more empowered, and saying no depends a lot on you being able to say yes to yourself and feeling confident and feeling powerful enough to give yourself the self-care that you need, and recognising that enables you to do more for the other people around you. And I honestly believe that when you wear things that you love and that you feel good in, it becomes easier to look after yourself, and it becomes easier to say no as much as to say yes, you know, to other people, and to take the action that you really need to take that's best aligned for you and for your health and well-being and for your business, for the biggest impact that you can make as an individual. So really, honestly, clutter clearing even in the sense that everyone instantly thinks of clearing out your crap, it really does make an impact, along with all the other clutter clearing that you can do at other levels. But start there, because it's a good place to begin.
Yes, and it's really easy to start with. So, Jayne, how can people work with you? I know you do a number of things. You do VIP days, you do coaching packages. What's the best way for people to get started working with you?
Well, if they go to my website, so it's just my name, JayneMorris.com, Jayne with a Y, they'll find instantly there podcasts and articles that will give them tips and techniques and tools that they can use in their lives. And if they feel that they'd like to go deeper with things, then there's a contact page there, and they can just fill out a form there, and that'll come via my PA to me, and I'll schedule a consultation with them and explore how, you know, what would best work for them. I do days with individuals, sometimes I will run special workshops and seminars, and I do sometimes do some retreats for people when they've actually got another person they want to do work with. I've worked with couples, friends, groups of colleagues. I'm going to be doing a retreat in 2015 in Thailand. So there's lots sort of coming, and there's different ways that I try and sort of provide services to work for, you know, something for everyone, although it doesn't necessarily always mean one-on-one, but I'm always, you know, trying to find ways to make things accessible for people. The book is hopefully going to be one of the biggest ways that I'm able to do that, by sharing as much as I can in as cheap and easy.
It is, and it's often a great way to start working with someone by reading their book and getting to know them, and then thinking, yes, this is the person I need.
Yes, absolutely. But all my contact details are online, so if anyone listening wants to get in touch and see if there's a way they can take things further, then I, you know, would love to hear from them.
Excellent, thank you. Now, Jayne, do you have any women business mentors, or are there any women in business who inspire you?
Yes, the one woman that I've really been very grateful to since I very first began with my business is Ali Brown, who's based in the States. And the reason for me she's been a sort of fantastic role model for success is that in the UK there aren't really many women doing things and making an international impact at the level that I truly desired with my business, and felt sort of really inspired and guided to make. So I feel like I'm really supposed to help shift things with burnout in corporations and organisations at levels, in countries all around the world. It's such a massive issue at the moment in so many places. I mean, when I was in Japan, it shocked me. They have a word for burnout, for death by overwork. Because they have like 10,000 people a year die of burnout, and in China it's something like 500,000. It's a massive issue, and obviously in the States it's a huge problem too. And for me, Ali was somebody that was really down to earth, a smart woman. Still, she was very spiritual, but still very glamorous, and kind of able to conduct herself with connection sort of to the real world, and the kind of the way that marketing works, and the way that almost a bit like really like Oprah, I guess. That sounds such a cliche to use Oprah as an example. I don't know anyone who doesn't admire Oprah, but in that sense of being able to connect with somebody no matter what level they worked at, no matter what industry they came from, no matter what country in the world they lived in, that kind of. Well, she did a program that I think we have it in the UK as well, where you're going to have to help me with the title of this if it comes to your mind. It's a millionaire program. What do they call it? Millionaire. Oh. Basically, they have various different millionaires and self-made millionaires who agree to give a percentage of their million to help others. And she went on this program, and I've never been able to actually watch the program because it aired in the States, and it's not available being in the UK, but from what I can gather, it sounded like the experience of basically coming out of her beautiful home, putting on jeans and a t-shirt and living on benefits for I think it was a week or so, and then going into sharing this sort of everyday lives with people who were living very within real struggle and poverty. That was something that she was able to do because she is down to earth, and she's approachable, and she's wants to really inspire other people no matter what they come from, what their background is. And I think that's really valuable, not just being able to connect with celebrities and CEOs and kind of people living these jet style lives and being able to blend effortlessly into the background with them, but equally to work with people who are from really deprived backgrounds and almost, even more so needing the help. So, she's been a really great source of inspiration for me, sort of on various levels, and I've flown out to the States to work with her. She runs sort of big training programs and conferences and things, and she's worth checking out if you've never heard of her before.
Oh, definitely, yes. Yeah. All right, Jayne, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything else you would like to add before we sign off?
I think I've probably rambled on enough.
No, it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into this. And remember to visit sociallyholistic.com/SHP22 for the show notes on this episode. And thank you again.
Thanks so much for listening to the Socially Holistic Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. Please help us help more women in business by giving us a 5-star review of this podcast. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more successful businesses there will be. So please leave a 5-star review today over at iTunes. Thank you.